Next, number 21, 119 Pinewood Avenue. The purpose of the application is to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a third-story addition and a rear third-story platform. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, opposition from 121 Pinewood Avenue. Mr. Hatch?
Hello, my name is Jonathan Hatch. I'm representing clients at 119.
Mr. Hatch, we're having trouble hearing you.
Oh. Is that a little bit better?
That's a lot better. Thank you.
Perfect. Sorry, Jonathan Hatch, 119 Pinewood Avenue. My address is 6 Bishop Street, Toronto, Ontario, M5R 1N2.
Okay, we need a brief presentation. We have some opposition, sir.
Of course. This is a proposed new third story on a single family home for a growing family. It's proposed mainly on the existing footprint. We're seeking 5 variances for this family of 4. In speaking with the neighbors, we have amended many of the variances, as you've noted, for the southern neighbor, but to the benefit of both. Issues of privacy have been addressed by reducing the deck size and adding privacy fences on both the north and south side. This has reduced variances 1 and 3. Variance 2 for FSI, we're proposing 0.86 in a 0.8 district. That's 6% we consider minor. Toronto is, in Toronto in general, and this neighborhood is in a major sense, it's a state of density increases, which you can see in our research in our cover letter. 6% over the allowable when taking into account the surrounding neighborhood, which is seeing between 90 to 98% FSIs. 6% is relatively small. Variance 4 is for the eave setback. So this is an existing condition. If you've driven by the house, you'll see, or even looking at the survey, you'll see that the houses are quite close together, 0.16 meters between houses, which is just over 6 inches. We have been speaking to the northern neighbor whom had eave concerns, and we offered to pull the eaves back in line with the side walls, and we were still waiting to see whether or not they were supporting that portion. We did go through some of the opposition letters, and we did try to address them. My client spoke to them a number of times, and we made gestures to try and add to their eaves or their fascia board and to do what we could to rectify a lot of their concerns. Lastly is the amended height variance of 9.63 in lieu of the 8.5. This is a 3-story area. It's an 11-meter height allowance in this area as well. Our top of roof now is less than the adjacent neighbor to the south, so our 2 roof lines should be stepping as we go north, stepping downwards, I should say. You'll see the front has been designed with a traditional gable facing the street, so we will naturally blend in with a lot of the original housing stock on the street. So we believe the impacts are quite minor, as the addition is mainly behind the ridge towards the rear, which is why we even get a main pair wall variance. So although we have spoken to the neighbors, and the southern neighbor was originally in opposition, the changes that we made in our cover letter, they are no longer in opposition, which they didn't. As you can see, there's no opposition added. But the northern neighbor, as of yesterday when we last spoke to them, hadn't pulled back on their opposition. Okay. I'm not sure if they're going to be speaking today, so I'll just pause there.
We have a couple of speakers today.
Great.
Okay, so panel, do you have any questions of Mr. Hatch?
Rick.
Yes, Yim?
Okay, I think it's from your neighbor 121. In the letter, he has mentioned the chimney, the existing chimney, that for your addition, it will affect maybe the use of his chimney. Has that been resolved or discussed?
So, as you know, their chimney has nothing to do with the current application, but we did talk to them about this chimney, and we offered that if there were any adverse effects, as in if our proposal caused a non-code compliance on their chimney, as in it had to be raised as a result of us, my client offered to pay to have that chimney modified.
Oh, good. I mean, I like to hear that, actually. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
All right. Mr. and Mrs. Dogood?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello, Mr. Chair and committee members. My wife, Judy, and I did submit a letter of concerns with respect to the request for variances.
Yes, can we have
just
your
wanna
name, can we have your name and your address for the record, please?
Yes, Bob Dogood, 121 Pinewood Avenue.
Okay.
And is my wife, Judy, speaking with me or as a separate speaker?
Well, one or the other will speak. We don't have two speakers from the same address.
Very good. All right, so I shall continue. Yes, we submitted a letter of concerns to the committee. Number of concerns relate to the proximity of the two buildings. Both the eaves of both buildings are touching, currently on the second story. There's the concern with the chimney, and whether or not that presents a problem for us and an obligation if we become out of compliance with respect to them building a third story. We just wanted to make sure that the clearances were respected with respect to code compliance regarding their third story. The issue of eaves touching, I think the one concern we have with respect to item 4 in the requested variances is that the existing condition is really not desirable for anyone trying to maintain their building. However, I don't think it's prudent to extend that to the rear and present further conditions down the road should a second story addition occur at our house. And related to that, and it's item number 5 on my list of conditions or list of concerns, is that there's a proposed overhang for the third story structure that overhangs the second story structure to the north. And I mean, I'm concerned about that as although it does come very close to the property line, about 6 inches from the property line, what that means to my patio area, both visually and in terms of maintenance. But also the question whether or not that would require a variance. I don't see that really being reviewed or discussed with respect to the application or anything else. So I'm just asking the question whether or not that overhang is subject to a request for variance. And the other issue I have is with respect to drainage along the east face of the rear face of the buildings. Right now, the grading from their property to our property, some of their property drains onto our property, which is lower. And I'm just worried about roof drainage and how that's going to be addressed, hoping that if any roof drainage that may be coming down on the rear of the property could be redirected to the southeast face of the building. So those are really my concerns. I think the only other one is, again, item 1 on my letter of concerns with respect to plan information. There is a vent stack on the north face that doesn't really, it shows up in the survey, shows up in the site plan, but it doesn't really show up in the floor plans. And I'm just wondering how they're going to address that, because that vent stack is right at the property line at the moment. So like I said, I have a number of concerns, and I'm sorry, I don't know what Committee of Adjustment can address in this particular
So
instance.
for the most part, sir, I don't think those are issues that we can address. They seem to me to be issues that will be addressed in the building stage, and perhaps you should continue speaking to your neighbor to be sure that your concerns are dealt with.
Okay, well, thank you very much, but the one question I would have still remains, is that the third-story building overhang on the north side.
We'll ask Mr.
is
Hatch. We'll ask
is
Mr. Hatch.
outside the second floor footprint.
Yeah, we'll ask Mr. Hatch to deal with that. Okay, panel, do you have any questions of Mr. Dugan? Okay, Diane Granum? Is she here?
Good afternoon. Hello?
Yes, hello.
Yes. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So my name is Diane Byam Granum, and I live at 117 Pinewood Avenue. And the reason that I asked to speak this afternoon is to confirm that the actual variances that I agreed, the changes that I agreed with my neighbor to would actually be the ones that come on the approval if it is given today. Because the letter that Jonathan Hatch was speaking to on the variances that he was speaking to just now are the old variances. It doesn't reflect the new plan that he showed me with the third floor deck reduced.
All right, Miss Granum, we have
Yes.
put on the screen the variances that we're now dealing with. They seem to me to be revised. Whether they're revised in accordance with your agreement, I don't know, but you should check them and
Well, no,
let
it
us know.
isn't. It was number 3, and number 3 now says 10.6, but in the neighbor brought for me, it was reduced to 7 point something or the other. And actually, I think that letter was under supplementary information in the system when I finally found it. So it was
do we have
supporting
supplementary?
documents. It was under supporting documents.
All right, let us go back to Mr. Hatch and ask him about variance. So is that the only one you're concerned about?
Yeah, that's the only one that I'm concerned about.
All right, let's go back to
And
Mr.
the reason for that is that this building projects beyond my bedroom. The only window from my bedroom would be impacted.
Okay, so let us go back to Mr. Hatch and see what he has to say about variance number 3. Mr. Hatch?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. So you are currently looking at my cover letter. Down below in bold, I've amended the variances, and you can see it's meant to be 7.83.
That's variance
from the
number
original.
3.
That for variance 3. So the southern neighbor at 117 is absolutely correct. It should be 7.83 instead of 10.66. And to reinforce what she has requested, we would be happy to be tied to plans that are attached to that supporting documents.
Okay. Are there any other changes to the variances we have?
Not at this point. So I just want to address some of the first callers, the northern neighbor.
Okay.
I think you addressed some of the items, which is that most of them are code-related items. And we have been speaking with them, and we are absolutely willing to work with them to address the chimney concerns, to address the eave setback issues. So in this case, the 6 inches, whether or not I'm at 0 or whether or not we go to in line with the building, there's only 6 inches between buildings. So what we told them was that we would be willing to make any of the changes that are required during construction when the roof lines are available to be actually modified, which is the only time. Because whether or not we do it 10 years from now or we do it tomorrow, if this proposal doesn't go forward, there's really no room to do this maintenance except for during this construction phase. So I don't think it really changes very much whether or not we never went ahead with this proposal or whether we'd go ahead with this proposal. In regards to a lot of the drainage issues, yes, we will be going through building code. Yes, we can drain towards the opposite side of the building away from the northern onto the backyard space because there is a lot of green space in this backyard. There was a question about the overhang. So this did not go through waiver. This did get a full review by the city zoning department, and there is no variance for the overhang. We get inline additions at the rear. And then finally is, I believe that's actually most of the items from the opposition.
Okay, thank you. Panel, do you have any questions? Okay, do we have comments or a motion?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, could we just go through all the variances just to make sure that we have this correct with the changes?
All right, Mr. Hatch? Mr.
Yes,
Hatch?
of course. Hi, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go through them one at a time.
Yeah, just tell us what you're asking for.
Yep. So variance 1 should be reduced from 0.98 to 0.51, which I believe is correct, as I see on the screen. Variance 3 is the one that's currently not correct. It should be 7.83, not 10.66.
All right, can we go back to 2?
Oh, 2, there's no change to 2.
Just tell us what they are, because we have them highlighted in yellow. I thought that meant it was revised, so I just want to be sure we have the right number.
My apologies. So variance 2 for an FSI of 0.86 remains the same, and what I see on the screen is correct.
Okay. 4?
Variance 4 for eaves, that remains the same at 0.
5?
And variance 5 is on the screen is correct. It changes for the front main wall at 9.63 and the rear exterior main wall at 9.92.
Okay.
Variance 5, it should actually read 9.63 for both front and rear main walls.
Oh, so the rear exterior main wall should be 9.63?
Yes, we reduced it in discussions with the southern neighbor, and it should be 9.63 for both front end.
All right, thank you. All right, panel, any questions now, or do we have a motion?
I'll move this one, Chair. First off, I think a good example of where the applicant has spoken at length with the adjacent neighbors and tried to come to an accommodation, and sounds for the most part that has happened. So that's a good out. I think the proposal is a good. The massings for rear, the front facade is trying to sort of stay in character and keeping with the surrounding neighborhood. I thought variances in total are really quite minor. I think this is a portable application. I'm prepared to move approval of the amended variances we discussed with no conditions.
Seconder, Yim, all in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you. Number 22, 49 Hunter Street, and the purpose of this application is to alter the existing two-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a third-story addition. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, support from 9 properties on Hunter Street. Mr. D'Oliveira?
Hi, yes, I'm here. My name is Mike D'Oliveira. I'm the agent acting on behalf of 49 Hunter Street, and I'm with Replacement Design located at 911 Davenport Road.
Good. So I think this is pretty straightforward. We don't need a presentation. Do you have anything to say before I take it into committee?
No, not really. I think you kind of made a point. Our variances are quite minor. We only have 2 related to the floor space index and overall mean wall height. We're well within other examples in the neighborhood. There's plenty of other addresses along Hunter that have FSIs well beyond 1 times density going up to 1.19. Same thing with the overall mean wall height. There's addresses along Hunter that are over at 10.53, 9.9. So we're not really going with anything that's kind of beyond what you see in the neighborhood already. We have support from the attached neighbor, as well as the other letters you had mentioned. So I think it's pretty straightforward. I don't know if any
Okay.
questions might have.
Yim, do you have a question? No? Okay. All right, so we'll go into committee. Do we have comments or do we have a motion? Yes, Yim?
Oh, I have a motion and I went through the material. I think it's a straightforward application, and and I agree with that. Even with the increase in FSI or GFA, it's still a modest size home, and with no condition, I move for approval.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Carl, all in favor?
I wondered, Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
before you vote, Yim, would you consider a friendly amendment to tie it to the elevation drawings?
Sure.
I think this addition without this approach to the 3rd floor might be kind of problematic.
Oh, okay. All right. Tied to the
Okay, I
elevations.
second that.
Which elevations you just both? Or?
Front and side, I would do all the
Okay.
elevations. It's probably the easiest.
Okay.
All right, so Carl, you're seconding the motion?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you. Item number 23, 50 MACDONELL Avenue. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a rear 2-story addition, a rear 2nd-story addition above the existing 1-story addition, and a 2nd-story side deck. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. Mr. Chan.
Yeah. Hello. Hi. My name is Roy Chan. I'm
We
the
can't,
representative for the owner of 50 McDonald
all right,
Avenue.
Mr. Chan, I can't really understand what you're saying. It's kind of mumbled.
Just give me 1 second. Audio. Speaker. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, but we can't understand you.
Mr. Chan, I think the microphone might be very close to your mouth. If you just want to move away a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
It's a little better.
I'll turn your volume up, and if you just want to keep a little distance so you're not distorted.
Okay, I'm gonna turn down the volume. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. It's good now.
Okay.
So can we have your name and address for the record?
My name is Roy Chan. I'm from 0 Degree Studio. My address is 80 Micro Court, Suite 106, Markham, Ontario, L3R9Z5. And I am the agent representative for the owner of 50 McDonald Avenue.
Okay, thank you. I don't think we need a presentation, sir. It's very straightforward. We'll take it into committee. Yes, Yim? You're muted, Jim.
Although I have one small questions about, have you talked to your neighbor, 52?
Yes,
Okay, since
That-
they are the most affected one.
yes, we've spoke to the neighbor.
Okay. They don't have no objection on that, on it, right?
No, they don't. The intention of the design is to anticipate the future. If they ever want to build an addition, they can butt up against our building.
Okay, Carl?
I have a similar question. Have you spoken with the people at 48? My concern is with the balcony on your second floor. It overlooks their rear yard. And I'm wondering, I'm reluctant to suggest screening because it's not a very deep balcony, but I'm wondering if you've had any discussions with them.
Yes, the owner had discussed with them and they have no objection. I believe currently number 48 is, the owner themselves are living there, so they don't have any objections.
Okay.
Okay, because normally when you have a balcony overlooking someone's rear yard, you'd like to ensure that there's a screening, but if you were to put screening along that balcony to protect the property to the south, it would be rather claustrophobic. So you can assure me that they don't have any concerns with that balcony.
No, they don't have any concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any comments, panel, or we have a motion? Yes, Carl?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move approval of the application without any conditions. I think that it's a reasonable proposal, and I think it fits into the area as the applicant has indicated. He's had negotiations with both neighbors. I have a bit of reservation about the balcony screening, but as the most affected party that does not have concerns, I'm reluctant to suggest screening. So my motion is approval without any conditions.
Okay, second, Yim, all in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you. Number 24, 109 CLUNY Drive. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing three-story detached dwelling by constructing a rear one-story addition, a rear basement walkout, and a rear ground floor deck. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, a report from Heritage Preservation Services, and support from 88 Princefield Road. Mr. O'Connor.
Yes, it's John O'Connor. I'm the architect and the agent for the clients at 109 CLUNY. My address is 203 Carlton Street.
All right, thank you. Before we take it into committee, do you have anything you want to say?
Just that the proposal we believe is minor in nature. We look to improve some interior spaces and make better connections to the rear garden. Generally, the proposal is not visible from the street, and it is in keeping with the character of the existing house in the street.
Okay, thank you.
We also have discussed the proposal with the neighbor to the north, 111 CLUNY Drive, and they gave verbal no objections to the staircase.
All right, thank you. Larry?
This looks like a really good application. I just wanted to confirm, it looks like from your photos that the rear yard landscaping variance is less than existing condition. Is that correct?
Yes, it's existing. We're building over the existing staircase that goes down to the basement, and there's some minor changes just to make pathways, and I think a reduction of 1%.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. Thanks.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Sure, I move the motion. I think there's a very minor, a tiny addition to the rear. The rear landscaping is an existing condition. I'm happy to move a motion to approve one. I think Heritage submitted a letter requiring, conditions. I'll tie it to the Heritage condition.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Carl, all in favor? Have your approval. Thank you, sir. Number 25. Oops. 46 Bolton Avenue. Purpose of the application is to alter the existing two-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a third-story addition and a rear basement walkout. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, 20 form letters in support, and a staff report from planning. Mr. D'Oliveira.
Hello again.
Hi.
My name is Mike D'Oliveira. I'm here on behalf of 46 Bolton Avenue, replacement design located at 911 Davenport Road.
Okay, again, straightforward. Do you have anything to say before we take it into committee?
No, similar to the previous application, as well within other applications on the street, there's plenty of instances along Bolton that were approved for 0.5 FSI. There's also others that had height variances similar to this that were approved for 11.1 meters. We also stepped the front and back ends of the third floor addition to kind of break up the look of a towering third floor on the street. So I think we've done what we could to keep this in line and keep it acceptable. We've limited our variance to just 2, which I think is not very common for extremity adjustment, but open any questions you guys might have.
Okay, panel, any questions? Okay, do we have a motion? Yim? You're muted, Yim.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I agree. This is a straightforward application, and I do not think that it's still a very modest-sized house, very small, and with the planning condition which requires is it screening the first floor. Is it the first floor platform they call with privacy screening? I will move for approval.
Yes, Carl?
Oh, I'm seconding it.
Oh, okay. Good. All in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you. Number 26, 10 Rummel Avenue. Purpose of the application is to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a one-story rear addition and a rear deck. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, a report from Urban Forestry, and support from 58 Raymond Avenue. Paige Reich.
Hi, committee members. My name is Paige Reisha from Bloom Inc. at 222 The Esplanade, Unit 1121, Toronto, Ontario, and I'm the designer and applicant.
Okay. It looks reasonably straightforward, so we're going to take it into committee. Do you have anything you want to say before we take it into committee?
Yep. Just that this is a very modest renovation for what is typically done in this neighborhood. We received 1 letter of support, but we also received verbal approval from the adjacent neighbors at 8 BRUMELL and 12 BRUMELL. It's my opinion that the variances are minor, are in keeping with the neighborhood, and meet the 4 tests.
Thank you. Panel, any questions, or do we have a motion? Carl?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval of this application subject to forestry number 2. As the applicant has indicated, it's consistent with the neighborhood. It's a modest addition, and it's the sort of thing I think we're going to see more of as people age and they need to try and live on only 1 floor of their accommodation.
Carl, Larry, you second the motion? All right, all in favor? Have your approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
177 Pearson Avenue. Purpose of the application to alter the existing 2 1/2 story detached dwelling by constructing a rear third-story addition, a dormer, and a rear one-story addition with a rear ground floor deck. We have, with this application, material submitted by the applicant and 5 form letters in support. Mr. Dang?
Hi, yes, this is Oliver Dang here. I'm representing my clients, and I'm at 155 Evelyn Avenue again.
Okay, so it looks straightforward. We're going to take it into committee. Do you have anything to say before we go into committee, sir?
Not at this time.
All right. Panel, you have any questions, or do you have a motion? Yes, Yim?
Yeah, I move for approval, and I look at the variance there, very minor, and some, I think number 3 are triggered by the existing condition. I move for approval with no conditions. They do also have support in the 5 supports, so I'm happy with that.
Okay, seconder? Carl, all in favor? Have your approval, sir. Number 28, 87 Highland Avenue. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing 3-story detached dwelling by constructing a 3-story front and rear addition, a rear basement walkout, and a rear terrace. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. We have correspondence from Ravine and Natural Feature Protection and Toronto and Region Conservation Authority, and a report from Heritage Preservation, a total of 5 form letters in support. Mr. Wengel.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Richard Wengel, 102 Avenue Road. I'm the architect for the proposal.
Okay, so let me just check. Okay, you have no opposition, Mr. Wengel. But you have a lot of variances. Could you give us a brief synopsis of what's happening here?
Yes, Mr. Chair. If we could just turn to our presentation material.
Yeah. If you could just speak up a little louder, please.
Yes, I'll try and do that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Okay, we have our presentation package, and I'd just like to go briefly through it. We've dealt with TRCA, Ravines, and Heritage, and have support from all 3, as well as planning, who have no objections to our proposal. Essentially, what we are doing is squaring off an addition on the back and working with some 3rd floor elements. You can see on our site plan, in green is the existing house. The pink is the squaring off of the home at the ground floor level, and there's a terrace that protrudes towards the rear that's very similar to the house on the right, which is our west neighbor, who we also have support from. If you can see the blue lines, you'll start to see the conservation construction buffers, the setbacks, and the long-term stable top of bank, which is at the top of page. Again, all dealt with through TRCA and Ravines and natural features. If we can go to the next page, we'll then just show you, this is our neighbor support. You'll see neighbors right beside us in green and across the road have written letters of support. In addition, there's a neighbor at number 89, an elderly neighbor who was hesitant to sign anything but had no objections to our proposal. And then if we were to go to the next page, you will see this is a density chart. So you'll see that the FSI that we're requesting is at 77%. There are other houses that exceed that in the neighborhood, but one thing is that we are being calculated for FSI above the long-term stable top of bank at 77%. If we were using our entire site, we would be just under 47%. So well within, I'd say, other approvals in the area. And then on the next page, we'll just show a list of different parking variances. Again, we have an existing garage that we are foreshortening in favor of a mudroom because of the width of it. It's an existing garage that we are rebuilding. But again, transportation has not had any issue with our proposal, nor has planning. The next two pages will just show our proposal from the front. So it is, again, a heritage house. There was an addition. That garage that you see on the right-hand side was their previous addition. We're just changing the materiality of it and just raising the roof of that addition slightly to allow for accessibility, creating an elevator that will take us up through 3 floors, which is actually disguised in the chimney. And again, we've gone through this with Heritage. We've had a Heritage impact statement done by ERA, and they were the authors of the North Rosedale Conservation District Plan, and they have vetted that through with Heritage as well, and they realized that our addition is now hiding what's behind in the rear that no one can see. The next page, we can just show you another view from the other side. Again, nothing is really changing in the front and side, just the addition to the rear. And then the next page will just show a proposed addition at the back, where it's becoming a more contemporary addition facing out onto the ravine. I feel everything is minor, does meet the 4 tests. There was one comment that did come through on the Heritage, from the planning report for Heritage, asking us to be tied to a couple of conditions. But since we've already vetted out with our Heritage impact assessment, and they do have in agreement in principle with us, I think we've dealt with everything, and I think to tie to a Heritage approval would be redundant because we still have to go for a Heritage permit. So again, in one sentence, they say, yeah, everything is great. We're hiding our addition. Our garage is forward, but it's back, and it's still a continued use of an existing. And then they asked to sort of deal with it again. I think we've dealt with it certainly through ERA, who are the authors of the study area and have vetted that through. I think it does meet the 4 tests, and if this were to be approved, I would ask that we're not tied to Heritage conditions, because we will still have to deal with them in the future under permit, separate permit.
Any questions, panel? Okay.
Sorry, so I have a question. I do have a question about, you just mentioned the heritage requirement that you need to have a permit anyway.
Yes.
What is the wrong if we're going to tie it as a condition? What do you not like?
Well, I think they want to review it again, but they'll have to do that as part of a permit. So I'd be happy to tie to elevation, because that's really dealt with it at the front. There's I think a bit of a mix-up in their comment, because they basically said the roof is well done because it hides the addition from the street. But on the other side, but if we were to lower it a bit, maybe it would look better, but then you would see the addition. So the whole intent under the Conservation District is not to see anything. So that's one. And then they talk about the garage being set back, and it already is set back. So we're basically repurposing on the exact same line that it's built with it. So I think, they get a lot of these and they review them quickly, but we've dealt with them with, a 70-page heritage impact statement that was done over several months and, authored by the authors of the actual Heritage District report. So I think they understand our intent, and they were supportive of us and were able to present, and Heritage did review it and didn't have a problem with it. So I think just the wording maybe leads to think that they need to review it again. But I think we could be tied to our elevations at the front, and everybody's happy because they liked it.
Yes, I understand that. That's actually very clear, because it's actually more specific if you tie to the elevations,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Panel, do you have any further questions, comments, or a motion? Yim?
Yeah, I think that it's been very well thought out proposal, and I agree if you be tied to the elevation is more specific, and then the issues are more well addressed rather than in general to say type of heritage condition. And I will move for approval with the proposal tied to the front elevation. Any other conditions?
Okay, do we have a seconder? Larry, all in favor? Thank you. You have your approval, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Number 29. 116 Shooter Street. purpose of the application is to alter the existing three-story townhouse by constructing a rear one-story addition, also to maintain the existing 9-bed sitting rooms and communal kitchens, which will be reconfigured within the 3 levels of this townhouse. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, a report from Heritage Preservation, support, 5 form letters in support, interest or concern from 114 and 112 Shooter, opposition from 120 Shooter, upper limit and upper unit and lower unit. Okay, now we have Mr. Abbey.
Good evening, committee. My name is Brian Abbey, AdTech Building Consultants, 382 Cleveland Street, Toronto, M4S 2W9. I'm here representing my client to present this application for minor variances.
Okay, so, sir, there's some opposition. Would you
Yes.
just go through the variances quickly and let us know, give us a short presentation?
Sure. The main purpose is to add this 1-story rear addition and that has access, a stair down to the basement and a deck on the roof of the addition. And that basically is the extent of the work that's involved. There was a proposal to put a casement window in the front elevation, but I have subsequently spoken with Heritage and I think we will be withdrawing that. Other than that, I think Heritage were supportive of the application. It was just the window at the front that they were concerned about.
Okay, so let's go to Miss Meredith and Mr. Swan.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time. I know that this is at the end of your list. So I'm representing 120 Shooter Street, if that would be all right. Deb Meredith, Brent Swan, we live in the upper unit. Marilyn and Jerry Crawford are out of town. And we both have written letters in opposition to this minor variance proposal. Is that all right?
Yes, could you just tell us what your concerns are?
I certainly will. As I'm just going to read a few sentences here. So the property does not have access from a back lane, and we are concerned about the possible negative impact on the public sidewalk and parking spaces on Shooter Street during this renovation. At the moment, the parking on Shooter Street is all...
Miss Meredith,
yes?
We have no control or mandate to deal with construction. So we just the 3 variances that are, you know, that you were notified about.
Yes. So maybe, all right. The property at 116 Shooter Street, as far as I can tell, is being run as a rooming house with 9 bedrooms. We are concerned that increasing the capacity of the property may set a precedent that would encourage our neighbor next door to us, who operates an Airbnb, to also be allowed to increase her space into the backyard. These were initially designed as, you know, 2-story duplexes, and it's really changing it's changing our neighborhood in a very heartfelt and heart-wrenching way. So perhaps if you can't, who should I go to for these kinds of things? I understand that you're very limited in your scope, and so, and I don't know much about this, but
Well, just tell us what your concerns are, and we'll let you know whether they're.
I'm I'm really concerned that if you open the door to this one, then they'll build into the backyard. So we live at 120, 118 is an Airbnb run by an off-site owner who I know would love to expand, and we're really concerned about that because we've had so many problems because she doesn't live there and it's just a big party zone. So we're 120, 118 is the Airbnb, 116 we know the owner John Knowles very well. 116 is Delia's, 114 is John Knowles, and 112 is we know that whole block. We're very tight. We've lived here for 30 years. It's like it's going to crack the egg, and all of a sudden, hey, you've got approval, I can do it. So I've sat through the whole thing, and you've given approval to everybody, and I guess, I just wanted to say my piece, and it's really concerning me. So that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Panel, any questions? Nope. Okay. Mr. Yuan? Or Miss Yuan?
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, I'm representing my father.
Yes, what's your name and your address?
Yi Kun Yuan. My address is 22 Rolling Wood Drive.
Okay.
North York, Ontario.
All right, tell us what your father's concerns are.
Oh, sorry, we are the owner for 116 Shooter. Hello?
Just to confirm, you're not here in objection or support, you're just here
Oh, no,
as
no,
owners?
I'm here to support, yeah.
Who's the
Okay.
applicant?
All right, so we've heard from your agent, so we'll just go on and speak to Mr. Knowles.
John Knowles, you've been unmuted. Mr. Knowles, are you there? All right, John, I'm going to remove you from the hearing and give your cell phone a call. Hopefully we can connect that way.
So is he online at all? Yeah, okay. Mr. Abbey?
Yes.
Yeah, so Ms. Meredith expressed concerns that she just seemed to say that if you do it, then everybody else is gonna do it.
Well, if I may comment, she's correct. We're not proposing a new rooming house. It's been a rooming house for many years. We're just trying to go through this process to legalize it because we need to get a license. And the addition would be for the owner or an appointed manager to be on site to look after the problems that these objectors seem to have concerns about. So it will be run as a proper rooming house licensed. That's the intent.
So you're improving the situation?
Absolutely.
Yep, okay, thank you. Can we find Mr. Knowles?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I've sent Mr. Knowles an email because he doesn't have a cell phone to connect to. I'm hoping he connects in the next minute or two. He hasn't reconnected yet.
Pardon? Yeah. Okay, so, panel, I think we'll come back to this when and if Mr. Knowles contacts us, but we have one other item, so we'll go on to that, and then we'll come back to this one. Item number 30, 353 to 355 Crawford Street. And the purpose of this application is to obtain consent to sever an existing residential lot into two residential lots and to deal with variances for each of those lots.
Chairman,
Yes,
yeah, it's not this one that in there's a councilor's letter and also planning also mentioned that they will request a deferral because they might need to have rental unit demolition application.
yeah, I think it is, but I have to go through the initial introduction first.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay. All right, so with this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. We have reports from engineering, planning, and urban forestry. We have a letter recommending deferral from Councillor Layton, and we have opposition from numerous addresses on Crawford, an address on Spring Garden Avenue, an address on Baseball Place, and an address on St. Clarence Avenue. Mr. Romano?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's also some supplementary materials that were submitted. There is a deferral request from Franco Romano.
Yes.
And there's also more opposition on Crawford and St. Clarence Avenue.
Yes, thank you. All right, Mr. Romano?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity. I am, 2095 Autumn Breeze in Port Credit. I am here before you today seeking a deferral in light of the recent communications and information that's being conveyed to the owner.
Okay, so is this because of the opposition? You want a deferral to speak to the neighbors?
No, sir. It's not in terms of the opposition. The owners have reached out to residents that have interest in the file, including the immediate neighbors. But the correspondence that has been placed on file, both by city planning, the local councillor, and various other residents, is information that is being digested by the owner, and we'd like the opportunity to be able to address that. And certainly planning staff is asking for a deferral. They do raise some points in their report that happy to address at the appropriate time, but I'm looking to defer right now so then we can continue this dialogue and get to the bottom of this.
Okay. All right, so can we address all the opposition in one shot?
We can't address everyone in one shot, but I can go through the list and ask them if they're opposed or in support of deferral.
Okay, well, we should do it on the record.
Yeah, it'll be.
Okay. Let's do it the most expeditious way we can.
Hello, Ashley Toth.
Hi.
Hi, are you in support or opposition to a deferral?
Support.
Thank you.
Hello.
Are you in support or opposition to a deferral?
So do we get to make our views known at a later date with a deferral?
Yes.
Yes, I would support a deferral.
Thank you. Terry Shane.
Hello, yes, I would support a deferral.
Thank you. Don Christie.
Yes, I would support a deferral. Thank you.
Thank you. And then there were two other speakers, Rebecca Rogers and Annabelle Silva, who are not in the hearing room and didn't respond to calls to join. We also have John Knowles back on the line for the previous
so
application.
let's deal with Crawford Street first, and we'll go back to Mr. Knowles. Okay, panel, request for a deferral. Does anybody, would somebody make a motion for a deferral? Yes, Carl?
Mr. Chairman, I move deferral of this application to allow the applicant the time necessary to provide planning and others with the information they need to discuss the application.
All right, seconder? Larry, thank you. All in favor? Have your deferral, sir. Thank you. All right, Mr. Knowles?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent, okay. Sorry, I was trying to speak through my computer, but you couldn't hear me. My name is John Knowles, and my property is 114 Shooter Street, which is adjacent to the applicant 116 Shooter Street. We share a common wall between the buildings, so the proposed addition would extend out immediately beside my property. And so I have two concerns, and I guess I would have termed it an objection if I had known that there was going to be a difference between concerns and objections. But the first concern is that the extension would create a blank wall right beside the living room window of my lower apartment. The building has two apartments, two-story apartments, one on top of the other. Mine does. So the rear of my building has a two-story living room, all glass, and the addition would create a blank wall right beside, not spaced away, but right beside that living room window. The second concern is that on top of the proposed addition is a large deck, and so that ends up being adjacent to the upper apartment bedroom in my property, and that deck would look directly into the bedroom, which has a large sliding door on the side that's adjacent to 116. So the deck would have a privacy issue. So I did discuss this with the owner and by email, and she had consulted her architect and said that, and I guess the architect is here, so he can respond, but said that they couldn't make the addition, reduce it to the same depth as my home, which actually has an addition already, but it's a smaller addition. But they could reduce it by up to a maximum of 0.46 meters. My response was that would be helpful, and reducing it by 0.4 meters would be helpful. And they also offered to put a permanent privacy screen on the deck, and I think that would be helpful too. So my my desire would be that if it was approved, that the addition would be approved with the first variance being, which is the setback, would be increased from by 0.4 meters to 7.71 meters rather than 7.31 meters, I think is what's proposed. And the second variance, the depth then would be increased by or reduced by 0.4 meters from 20.49 to 20.09. And the third variance, the FSI, I've been hearing FSIs throughout the hearing of 0.7 and 0.5 and 0.9. These are old townhouses, so they're already beyond the FSI permitted area. This proposal would be 2.41 times the lot area. I think the reduction by 0.4 meters would probably leave it reasonably close to that same FSI. So that's a lengthy outline of my thoughts and concerns.
All right, so I don't understand variance number 3 with respect to floor space index. You can't compare the other ones that we were discussing today because floor space index in different areas are different numbers. So are you suggesting that this be left alone and you just have the other reductions in length and depth?
Well, no, I wasn't able to do the calculation on what the floor space index would be if the depth was reduced by 0.4 meters, but I would say the third variance adjusted appropriately to incorporate the 0.4 meter reduction.
All right, we'll have to speak to Mr. Abbey. Okay. Panel, do you have any questions? Okay, Mr. Abbey?
Yes, I'm glad you got hold of Mr. Knowles. So yes, we did give him that advice, and I think we're accepting it. I actually have done the math. If we reduce it by 15 inches, which is actually
So,
0.38 of a
Mr.
meter.
Abbey,
Yeah.
can we just deal with this one variance at a time? Start with number one and tell us what the number should be.
Okay, if we take, hold on, what have we got here? Yeah. 1, 2, 8. Yes, it would be. Look at that number again. Where is it? Oh yeah, 7, 3, 4, 8. It would be 7.69.
So that would eliminate the variance number
Eliminate
one?
variance 1.
Okay, variance number one is gone.
Yeah.
Number two?
Yeah, that would, this is the depth. The depth would go from, the existing building is actually 18.09 meters. And when we reduce it, it would come down to 20.15 meters.
Okay.
So it's reducing it by, 0.38.
Right.
And so the difference is only 2.06 meters. And so that would reduce that variance.
And number three?
The third variance, yes, the area, when we reduce the depth of the addition, it would be reduced to 9 square meters. You add that to the existing, and that would give you a, where is it here? Yeah, that would be 2.34 times, sorry, where am I? Yes, it would give a total of 329.42 meters squared, which is actually 2.4 times the lot instead of the 2.34 that it is currently.
You were asking for 2.41. You say you're reducing it to 2.4?
2.4, yes.
Okay.
That's
All
how
right.
minor it is.
All right, so perhaps we can, Mr. Knowles, is that okay with you?
Able to quite follow, oh, hello, I wasn't quite able to follow the math, but I think could we just go over those three variances again? So 7.31
Number one is going to be in excess of 7.5 meters, the minimum required yard setback, so that variance is eliminated.
I see. Okay.
Because
yes.
he complies
Number
with,
two, then.
complies with the bylaw.
Yes, and number two would go from a depth of the depth of 20.49 meters to 20.15. Did I hear?
Yes, that's correct.
So a reduction of 0.34 meters.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's helpful. And then the privacy screen on the deck, I think that was something that Mr. Abbey had also confirmed with his client.
Okay.
And I think that would be helpful to me. I appreciate the other concerns that people have raised, and I agree with them. But I'm not sure whether if it's going to carry ahead, then with these revisions, I would be less concerned.
All right. So variance
Mr.
number
Chairman,
three.
add for clarification.
Pardon?
Could I ask for clarification on something? The
Yeah.
screening, is it only on the second floor deck? And is it only on one side? I was going to recommend that the deck have screening on the east and the west side. And then my question to the appellant is the screening that you're seeking, it's on the deck, but is it also on the third floor balcony?
I think he's talking to you, Mr. Knowles.
Is that me? Yes, the balcony, I don't think it's on the third story. It's on the top of the proposed addition, which would go out the full amount of the addition. So my concern was on the west side, which abuts my house, that there'd be screening there. On the east side, that is, I'm not sure what the property would be like there. But I think they already have an addition that was the same amount.
And you don't have screening concerns about the third floor balcony?
No. Are you talking about an existing balcony? I'm not sure if there is one.
There is a balcony on the drawings. You might be right. It may be existing. Just let me look. That might be my mistake. Sorry. Deck. Sorry, it's an existing balcony. My mistake. So we're only talking about the second floor deck.
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Abbey?
Yes, well, I'm in agreement with that, and certainly we put a privacy screen there, and we can put some vegetation on it to make it look nice.
Okay.
I don't think we would put one on the east side, but if it is a concern with the neighbor, I'm sure we could do something to appease them as well.
All right, thank you. Panel?
Other than that, I hope that I'll leave it to the panel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Panel, any further questions? Or Carl, do you want to make a motion?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval of the application as revised, as we've discussed with variance 1 removed, variance 2 adjusted to 20.15, and variance 3 adjusted to 2.4 or 329.42 square meters, and the provision of a 1.5 meter opaque screen on the east and west side of the second floor deck.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Carl? Right. Larry, I keep calling you Carl.
We look alike.
All in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you. We concluded 6:22 p.m.
Everyone.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Good evening.
Great
Thank you.
job, Don.
Thank you, Jim.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Congratulations.
Sarah.